You sit down at your desk, ready to work on that game you once loved, but instead of excitement, you feel nothing. A few months ago, you poured hours into this game, late night, missing social events, all because you were following your passion, and that's the dream, right? But it turns out that now you can barely get out of bed in the morning, and the thought of writing a single line of code more in this shitty game which will never be finished makes you want to puke. And as you turn on your computer, hoping that time will pass faster than it usually does, you wonder, how did it come to this? If this story hits home very hard, I want you to know that you are not alone. We all game developers feel this way sometimes. I find it fascinating how passion is one of the most overrated things in the gaming industry. I've been around for almost 5 years now and I can't stop seeing people talking bit about how you should thrive because you have this amazing job. I genuinely remember some times in which people have non-ironically tell me that they don't mind working even 12 hours a day just because they are so passionate about their work. And I was like, wait, what? And alright, I get it, we all like video games and we love making them, but that doesn't mean that we should be passionate about it. Passion is great when it's there, but it should never be a requirement when it comes to success in the video game development industry. Most of all, we should carefully consider the double edge of passion, because if we don't, it's so easy to throw work-life balance out of the window in the blink of an eye. That's why today I want to explore with you all, firstly, why do we rely too much on passion in game development, why this is bad for us, and of course how we can replace passion with something much more healthier. Alright, the first thing that we need to explore is firstly, why do we rely too much on passion in game development? And I think it all comes down that game development is one of those things which combines really hard work, because video games are one of the most technically complicated things in the history of humankind, which combines thousands of people's collaborative work, and very poor and bad job conditions, in which we usually have lower salaries and have to constantly fight to keep our jobs. These two things combine a very aggressive environment in which we need something to survive in this place, and usually that thing is passion. This is even more true now in 2024, because if you have seen videos like the one from Logically Answered or other of the thousands of videos you can find on the internet exploring the stage of the industry, you can clearly see that we are facing the worst age of the video games. But I also think that we often forget that the video game industry has always been this way. If you remember the ET crash in the 80s, you can see the first case of burnout in game development, and from that point on to today, we have seen thousands of hundreds of people hating their jobs, working too much, and giving it all for a project that will never see the light. And the problem with us drinking this Kool-Aid about game development for all these years is that we have developed a really poor hobby to work management when it comes to our jobs. This means that we usually don't know anymore if video game development is our hobby or our work, and we are not really sure where to put it in its spectrum. If you feel this way, you should surely help by knowing about the sunken cost fallacy, which says that the more time we pour into something, the harder it is to change opinion on that, meaning that if you work on the game industry for almost 5 years now, it's much harder to change career than if you are just starting out, even if the decision is exactly the same, but you feel pressure to keep doing what you've already been doing. Alright, I think the elephant in the room when it comes to passion that we always ignore is that passion is unattainable by definition. So you are gonna get frustrated sooner or later because you are pursuing something that doesn't exist. We human beings are constantly changing and evolving, meaning that the thing that you like a lot today could be not so appealing in the future, and moreover it's almost impossible to be the best of the world in something we do. So maybe what we need to do is change our definition of passion, and following the advice of people like Cal Newport in So Good They Can Ignore You, we can think of passion as something that comes when we have worked hard to become excellent at something valuable, and not before. In other words, what you do for a living is far less important than how you do it. Meaning that you don't currently feel this spark about game development like all people do, I want you to not worry that much, because usually the better you get at something, the more you like it, and the more you like it, the better you are at it. And I know how difficult it is to look at other teammates, or even on the internet, and see so many people being so passionate about game development, not only working in a role at 9 to 5 in the industry, but also making their own indie projects. And I know in the surface this might sound great, but I can tell you from my own experience that fusing your work and your hobby is one of the worst things you can do. I've recently been so burned out because I lost a little bit of a passion about not only making games but also playing them. And since I was the video game guy, in which almost all my friends were from the industry, my main hobby was playing video games, and my job of course was making video games, the moment I stopped loving them as much as I used to, my whole identity crumbled, because it was all based on the fact that I was a video game lover. In contrast, now that I have found other hobbies non-related to the video game industry, like playing volleyball or the ukulele, I can safely rest assured that if I don't really like making video games anymore, the only thing that will be affected is my 9-to-5 job. And well, now that I have been laid off, not even that. So it's all good, I guess. And I know you might be wondering why we see with such good eyes people like Concern Apple or the creator of Animal Well, people who have created such successful indie game in the industry, even if we know that that is so rare. And I think it all comes down to the survivor bias we all face. This is a psychological phenomenon in which we tend to focus on the success stories, ignoring all the failures that have come along the way. This was fairly discovered in World War II, in which Abraham Wall, an Air Force general, discovered that most of the airplane didn't return from their missions, even if when they were reinforcing the plane pieces which received the most impacts. Wall realized that they shouldn't reinforce the pieces which received the most impacts, but the opposite, the pieces which received the less impacts, because that meant that the planes which received impacts in these pieces were those who didn't return home. And if they only focused on the ones which actually returned, they couldn't find the weak points of the planes, meaning that they shouldn't focus too much on the success stories, i.e. the planes which returned, but on the failures, the planes which didn't return. And I think this is exactly the same in game development. We shouldn't focus too much on the success stories, which are 1 in a million of cases, but on all of the people that have poured so much effort on their games, even giving work-life balance or relationships in the way, only to get a complete failure. And this doesn't mean that you should quit game development altogether. It just means that you should replace passion for something much more helpful. Alright, so the framework I want to show you today is one in which we're gonna flip 3 switches, which just takes 2 elements of our work life and turn them around so that we feel a little bit more healthy in our day-to-day lives. The first one is to switch from work style to professional values, meaning that instead of focusing on how you do your tasks day to day, you focus to your set of professional values. For example, something I value a lot in my work is freedom in how I tackle each task, meaning that if I have to give freedom for other things and just rely on my passion about the job to go along with the fact that I have no control over how I tackle my tasks, I can prioritize other tasks or even companies if this professional value is not met. So I would recommend that you write 3 or 4 professional values that you value a lot and carefully consider if the current job you have promotes or degrades those values, because the more you are aligned with them, the less likely is that you are gonna burn out. The second switch goes from results to progress. There is something quite obscure about goals in game development, because they are this fictional thing that we have all agreed upon, which only causes anxiety when we need to get to it, and the moment we accomplish it, it gets replaced for another goal, so we are never really happy in the process. In contrast, switching from results to progress is kind of thinking of your career as climbing a mountain, in which you need to focus on one step at a time, because if you have done bouldering some time, you know that the joy of climbing is not reaching the top, it's the process of starting on the ground and going all the way up, taking one hand or foot at a time. So I want you to think of all the little things you do every day and think if they give you energy or they drain it, and focus on making the least things that drain your energy, because it turns out that we are happier when we do less things that we hate than more things that we like. And the third and more interesting switch is from fixed career to flexible mindset. And to help you understand that, just think of 2 developers, Gavilar and Dalinar. On one hand we have Gavilar, which is kind of the more traditional game developer, who follows the default path, enters a AAA company, and climbs the corporate ladder until he gets to a seniority level. The problem with that is that he has no freedom whatsoever about his career, and he doesn't even consider alternative paths. On the other hand, we have Dalinar, who is stumbling a little bit at the start of his career, getting a freelancer job as a producer, and then switching to a programming role in an indie studio, and finally discover that what he wants to do is being a part-time community manager. The nice thing about Dalinar's path is that he is open to any opportunity that comes their way, and he accepts that his career is gonna be uncertain, but also open to all the possibilities he can think of. And it's totally fine if you want to follow the default path as Gavilar does, but I want you to be conscious of that decision, and not follow it because everybody have told you so. Because as Paul Miller said in The Pathless Path, the goal is not to find a job, make money, build a business, or achieve any other metric. It's to actively and consciously look for the work you want to keep doing, experimenting with different types of work, and once you find something worthwhile, work backwards to build a life around the possibility of continuing to do it. Because at the end of the day, we spend almost a third of our time working. So don't you think it's much better to enjoy every single minute of it than working our asses for an unattainable goal that we are never going to truly get? If you agree with the format, I think you will love this video right here, in which we told how you can enjoy your day-to-day jobs a little bit more, without relying on passion, of course. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.